Hi, this is Eric from longboxreview.com. Welcome to my pull list review for March 2022 comic books that I read. And I read 66 comic books, not quite as many as I did in February, but there you go. I also spent some time with my daughter and hardly read anything. I read one comic book while I was there. But anyway, which contributed to this lower number than last month, but that's okay because it does not matter how many I read as long as I'm reading, right? So what did I read? Let's see. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, number 3. I read the first issue special collection, 11 of the 13 issues, because I had already read 2 of them prior to obtaining that hardcover. I also read the Secret Society of Supervillains trade, which is 10 issues. And then I read the DC Blue Ribbon Digest number 19, which featured 4 issues of the original Doom Patrol. I also read the first 2 issues of the new digital-only series so far, Love Everlasting. And then I read 3 of the Reckless graphic novels. So the first one, Reckless, Friend of the Devil, and then Destroy All Monsters. Iron Man 2 and 3, Batman Superman number 18, Star Spangled Comics, that old Golden Age series, number 66, the final Immortal Hulk trade, volume 10 of Hell and Death, which contained issues 46 through 50. I caught up on Nightwing at that point. I read issues 84 to 89. Nice House on the Lake, like I mentioned, number 4. Saga 56, Batman Catwoman 7 through 10. And I'll talk about that later. why I'm getting caught up on that series now. Human Target 1 through 4. The Batman special from 1984, I think. And then the X-Men... the 2021 X-Men series 1 through 5, Star Trek New Visions, the final 2 issues 21 and 22, and then finally the crossover series from, 1980 something, the Outsiders special and the Infinity Inc. special. Now, I'm not going to be talking about all of these comics, just most of them, just briefly. And I'll start off with Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, number 3. I have been enjoying this series. I've been reading it digitally on the DCU app, but it was not one that made me want to get the singles. And the first 2 issues kind of bore that out for me. I enjoy it. It's wonderfully told, but it wasn't anything that was really kind of wowing me. And I've talked about this before when I talked about the last issue, but with issue 3 and the particular story that we got, the genocidal story, and coupled with the fantastic art and colors, we got some really cool full page. I think at least one full page, one splash page in there that was just gorgeously drawn and colored. And then there's some wonderful just overall general storytelling that's just amazing in that issue. So, I'm always looking forward to reading more things that are written by Tom King, but the Bilquis Evely art is really what is drawing me and drawing me in and making me look forward to reading the next issue. So, if you haven't checked that out, you should. All right, the first issue specials, DC's first issue specials. I knew of the DC first issue specials because I had read a reprint of one of these issues. This is one of the issues I did not count in because this collects the 13 issue run of it. And I had read the Dr. Fate issue, which I believe was issue 9. Many, many, many years ago, when I first started collecting comics and I was buying the DC digests, and I think it was a Flash digest that included this story. And so that was my first exposure to the idea of these one shots, these first issue specials. Now, I never thought of it I don't even think when I read that story in the digest at that time, that I even really registered that it was from first issue special. So, I found this out later. I actually found that specific first issue special at a Comic-Con. I can't remember if it was Heroes Con or Rose City Comic-Con, but I found it and bought it. It was not in great condition or anything, but it's like, oh, this is that story that I read in that digest that one time. And so I picked it up, and that's when I think I really became aware of this first issue special series, and I wanted to start getting some others. And then I think shortly after that, I found out that DC was putting out this collection, and so instead of waiting for the trade, which is what I normally do, I went ahead and picked up this hardcover, and I'll explain why when I talk about the next series of books that I read, if I remember anyway. But anyway, I read this, and then just recently, and I talked about this in the last, I believe, on the last Spotlight episode, and because this Tom King again is bringing back some of these characters and concepts, I believe, to do the Danger Street series, and so I definitely wanted to read this. And that's because I've had this hardcover in my collection now for a while, waiting to be read, and the Danger Street announcement prompted me to go ahead and read the rest of these issues that are collected here. So, anyway, what did I think of this? Well, mostly, they're not that great. It was kind of a struggle to read some of these because, it says first issue special, but it's not, this was ostensibly, this is like a tryout book. And so I think they would even end issues with, hey, let us know if you like this. Maybe we'll continue it type thing. Yeah. In fact, at the end of the first issue, this features the character Atlas the Great by Jack Kirby. Thus a great saga begins. If you would like to read more about the saga of Atlas, write. And they give the address to write. But if you read the introduction by Jerry Conway, he says that as a concept, the series was, frankly, more than a little half-baked, supposedly a tryout book for new concepts or revised and reintroduced characters. It didn't really serve that purpose effectively. One-shot appearances don't do much to predict reader interest in a character or series. They also don't provide a creative team sufficient time to develop whatever potential or new or revised character might have. And in the case of this series, production requirements didn't allow for much pre-development of any idea either. So, it was just, I guess, more of a showcase for some talent, some potential ideas, and maybe just kind of like the Let Them Live digital series on the DCU app. Maybe a way to burn off some of those one-off stories or ideas that DC had paid for. I don't know. However, Mr. Conway notes that some of these concepts came back decades later, like Atlas and the Starman character. And then we also got, the New Gods. It spun off into its own series, as did the Warlord, which, although Mr. Conway does admit that it had already been greenlit to go to a series before this, but, there you go. He counts it as a win. So what I liked about this were, quite honestly, the two issues that I had already read before, the aforementioned Dr. Fate story, and then there was an issue featuring Lady Cop that are my two favorites. But besides that, for the ones that I read specifically in March of 2022, I really liked the Kirby Atlas and Manhunter issues. Kirby just has, it's Kirby. He has this energy. He's got these wacky ideas, these visuals that they're just so fun to look at. Especially the Manhunter one, because the cover features a face mask, which is an actual face, I guess, pinned to looks like a cave or something. And with dialogue, "We knew you'd come, Manhunter, sooner or later," as Manhunter is sneaking up behind this animated face. I don't know. It's really weird. And then you turn the page, and the very first page of the series is that same scene drawn a little bit differently, but it's the same dialogue, the same idea. So I just, and then you have all these other faces on these sticks in this cave. It's so bizarre. It's really bizarre stuff, but it's so much fun. And then there were other things like the Green Team, which were, I don't know what the hell that was. It was so bizarre. I didn't know what they were going for, what the message was. It was like all over the place. It was anti-capitalism and pro-capitalism, and I don't know. I have no idea what the creators on that one were going for. And that was by Joe Simon and Jerry Grandinetti. So yeah, that was just bizarre. So yeah, it was interesting. It was fun. I wanted to read this, like I said, in particular because of the new Danger Street series. But if you were interested in thoughts on that in particular, how these stories, these characters, as presented in the first issue specials, go listen to the Daily Rios for Peter's take on how these stories could inform that new Danger Street series by Fornes and King. And then finally, I'll just say, I really hope that Tom King, because I don't remember exactly the announcement now, if he was mentioned, but I really hope that Codename Assassin plays a major role in this, because that was another one of the characters. The story is not so great, but the character of this is interesting. So, yeah. If you want to check out a little bit of the weird DC esoterica, you can go get this trade collection, or if you have the DCU app, you can go read all 13 issues on there. All right, next up is the Secret Society of Supervillains. It says Volume 1. This collects the first 10 issues of that, plus the original issue that was never published. So you get that in black and white at the end. So this, speaking of this, Volume 1, this is the reason why I sometimes buy these collections, like the first issue special one, in hardcover, because I waited for the trade for this Secret Society of Supervillains. And then, because in the meantime, they had announced a Volume 2. And then I don't actually remember if that got published or if it was only the hardcover that got published. Anyway, they never published the trade collection of this, of Volume 2. So now I'm stuck with the first 10 issues and not the rest, including, I think, the main reason I wanted that Volume 2 was they had reprints of some of the stuff that was in the DC Comics Cavalcade, the unpublished to the larger public collection of stories that was part of the DC implosion. They wanted to, some of these things that the new stuff that they were coming out with that they never did because of the implosion, they collected and actually printed a few copies of, so that they had the trademark or the copyrights for those particular characters or concepts. So anyway, they were going to include something that was in that cavalcade, the Canceled Comics Cavalcade, I think it was what it was called, in that Volume 2 of the Society of Supervillains, but it never materialized. So there you go. I guess that's why I get the hardcovers sometimes. Anyway, the Secret Society of Supervillains, kind of a weird mishmash of things and ideas. It's like it starts out with Manhunter, not the same Manhunter that I mentioned in the first issue special. It was the other Manhunter. I can't remember. I can't keep all their names straight. Paul Kirk, maybe. Anyway, the one who appeared in some backup tales in, I believe, Detective Comics, not Batman. He's like this particular Manhunter is a clone. He's a clone, and he has to fight himself. And it's a really good series. I have the original special collection that they did many years ago. Anyway, it's really good. Go check that out. But anyway, it features him pretending to be a villain and bringing all these other villains like Gorilla Grodd and Mirror Master and Sinestro, Captain Cold, and some others. But he brings them together because there's this greater threat that turns out to be, spoilers here if you haven't read it, Darkseid related. And so it goes along for, I don't know, the first 5. Yeah, I think it's the first 5 issues with that story. And then with along the way, Captain Comet shows up. And he kind of takes over as the central figure, the hero trying to take down the villains, but it's more overt in that way. Because, at this time in DC continuity, Captain Comet had just returned to Earth from a long trek in space and didn't know a whole lot of these heroes and villains. And if I'm remembering correctly, he kind of falls into this group and not realizing that they're villains. And anyway, so he kind of wants to take him down for duping him, and I guess for making him feel bad for not realizing, for his own naivete. So it's just really bizarre. I actually think I preferred the first part of this, the first half, essentially. But what the story tries to do a little bit is paint these villains as not so much villains, but not anti-heroes for sure, but they're not as bad as we might think of them. And so I kind of like that. Especially, I really, in particular, liked this French version of Star Sapphire, which I did not know existed. So this was at that time the new version of Star Sapphire. And so she seemed to have, I don't know, a bit of a conscience. It seemed like they were trying to set her up as an ersatz leader in the group, but then it never materialized, at least in these 10 issues. So, and also along the way, Kid Flash shows up for a few issues, which I thought, well, that's bizarre. Why Kid Flash? I don't mind, of course, because I like that character, but it was just kind of weird. And we also get an appearance of the Justice League, at least a few members of the Justice League. So, I don't know what happens in Volume 2, but after reading this and talking about it, now I'm even more intrigued. All right, I'm going to talk about the next 3 Reckless graphic novels. I read the first one when on my exercise bike, and immediately knew that I had to read the next 2 as soon as possible, which I did not. But that was the plan. So it reminded me a bit of when I read the November series, which were 3 volume series, and I read that first one and immediately had to start reading the second, and then I read the third. That was my intention here, but I wanted to read them when I was on my exercise bike, which I do like every other day. I'm supposed to, but I don't. So that took me a while. Plus, the aforementioned trip that I took to visit my daughter and her family, that, like I said, that kind of slowed me down. But so Reckless, if you're not aware, this is a Sean Phillips and Ed Brubaker series of graphic novels featuring the character Ethan Reckless. And so I have, obviously, like I said, I read the first 3. There's a 4th one coming out that I pre-ordered in the last month or 2. And I don't know how many they plan on actually producing, but I will take them all. Give me all of the Reckless. So anyway, just so you know, in case you are not familiar, Reckless is about, like I said, Ethan Reckless. Your trouble is his business for a price. A former 60s radical with the scars to prove it, Ethan is 1 part repo man, 1 part private eye, and 1 part wrecking ball. And so it's sex, drugs, and murder in early 80s Los Angeles. Yeah, they say Brubaker and Phillips launched their first graphic novel series with an electrifying new take on the paperback pulp hero. And yeah, this is I mean, it's really good. It's Phillips and Brubaker. So if you've heard me talk about their series in the past, you know how much I enjoy their work, and this is no different. This might be my second favorite series they've ever done. And before you ask, or if you might be wondering, I can't remember the name of the one that I like more. It's not Fatale. It's the other one where it's about Hollywood. I can't remember the name. I'm so bad at this. Anyway, so So the first graphic novel it gives you a little bit of backstory on Ethan and how he got in the situation he's in. He basically owns this dilapidated movie theater, and he spends his days and nights either watching old movies that he loves or surfing. And then sometimes, kind of like the A-Team, if you have a problem and you know how to get a hold of them, they might just take your case, or he might just take your case. So he does these under the books cases for people, and then lives off the proceeds from those until he needs a new job. And then he has an assistant, Anna, who mans the phones and tells him, hey, by the way, you need to take this job because we're running low on money. Yeah, it's just, the cases are interesting. It's very violent because, it's a Phillips Brubaker job. So, but very well done, wonderfully told. So, yeah. And then the second one is he gets involved with this woman whose sister, foster sister, adoptive sister, I can't remember now, went to LA to become an actress, and she ends up dead. So he has to work that out. And then the third one the case is not as interesting as the development of the relationship between, and I don't mean like they get together or anything, but just, the friendship of Ethan and Anna. So that's what I really liked about that particular graphic novel, but all good stuff. So highly recommend you check out Reckless. Okay. Immortal Hulk, the end of the Ewing and Bennett and others run, 50 issues of Hulk, 50 issues of a character whom I don't particularly care for in the Marvel Universe. I've never really cared for any story involving the Hulk, but I read 50 issues of this, so I must like it. It's really good. Basically, and spoilers if you haven't read it yet, Hulk meets God. That's how I interpreted the end of this series. And in this interesting, maybe wonderful, I'm still kind of processing it because of the way it was told. And I think maybe I might have a misprint of a sort in here. I'll get to that in a second. But God asks of Hulk, will you be strength, i.e. destruction, or will you be mercy? Will you be the left hand or the right hand of God? Yeah. Right? Heady stuff for the Hulk. Yeah. But where do you go from here? What happens next for the Hulk? I don't know because I'm not reading it. And I'll probably check it out just to see, because I think Donny Cates came on to the Hulk after this series, and based on what I'm reading, it's been kind of meh. So we shall see. But anyway, I really enjoyed this. I think I've talked about some previous volumes before, and while this final volume, aside from the whole God aspect, not my favorite of the 10 volumes, but it is a nice capper, a nice ending to this overall story. But like I said, I think I have this misprint or something, and I'm hoping those of you out there who have read issue 50 can tell me. But there is a point here, and I don't know what page it is because they don't put page numbers on comics anymore. I know I'm old. There's a point where the Hulk's personalities, they're in that gamma world with McGee, and I think they've rescued whatever Rick is here in this world. Or no, maybe it's not Rick. I forget now. But anyway, there's a Red Hulk and our more familiar Green Hulk. And they had just had their conversation with God, and they're just kind of talking to each other and about to return to the world because the Fantastic Four and I think Doc Samson opens up a portal and takes them back. And so we get a few pages describing that. So here's the page where the Fantastic Four are talking to McGee, and Stearns. That's the I think that's the character they were bringing back. Anyway, they're talking about Bruce Banner and how he has left them, as Bruce Banner often does. He ducks out. And then the next page is the two Hulks yelling at God, and the red one saying, "Show me your real face." And you turn the page, and it's this several page it's a fold out section. So, show me your face so I can look you in the eye. And God says, very well. And then you have to fold it out. So you get 4 pages in a row, and you see this God creature. Well, but I already saw that reveal several pages earlier. And that's what leads me to believe that maybe I'm missing something, or not missing, but in the way that it's printed here. Because right before we get that reveal of the blinding light of this persona, the Red Hulk says, "No, that ain't what we asked." And then Green Hulk says, "Yes, Hulk has heard this big talk from Big Bad Thing, but no why. And all we want to know why, you get it? Because we don't need to know who, and then the show me your real face thing." So that makes a whole lot of sense narratively, that this sequence follows that earlier segment, but maybe this was intentional, but it was, just to go back and fill in a gap. But it's so disjointed in the way that it's, or in the placement, or where it's placed. So I'm very curious now. Maybe I should go check out Marvel Unlimited, see if that issue is on there, and see how they present it. But if you've read this final issue of the Immortal Hulk, please let me know what you got, how it was presented for you, because I'm really curious now. Okay, Nightwing issues 84 to 89. The first few were Fear State tie-ins. It was all right because I didn't get the Redondo art. But there's some nice stuff between, if I recall correctly, Dick and Barbara. So I like that, and we get to see Barbara in action as Batgirl. But then issue 87 gave us that, everybody was talking about this, gave us that side-scrolling story, which I thought was just wonderful. One continuous side-scrolling action throughout the whole thing. That was great. And then, but I will say that as much as I love the Redondo Lucas art, it is very evident in that issue 87 that Bloodhaven looks way too clean for the way that the city is described. So, I mean, on the page, the art looks wonderful, but it should be a lot dirtier, a lot messier than what we saw in that issue. Just a minor nitpick. And then issue 88 is when we got his altered costume. I think, was it Mr. Terrific? Yeah, Mr. Terrific designed it for him, so it's slimmer, it's slimmer than his other costume or something, so he could wear it more. It's also, I think, it's to help protect him because there's an assassin, or there's a bounty on his head, on Dick Grayson's head, and so, but it also is more prone. I know he's less protected in some way. At least that's how I interpreted it. Anyway, that's really beside the point. But so you get that, and then issue 90 or 89 was that first of a 2-parter featuring John Kent, Superman. And so in the previous volume of issues that I talked about already, Superman, Clark Kent, came to Dick Grayson. Well, actually, Dick Grayson went to him to talk to him about what to do with the inheritance that Alfred left him. And at the end of that, Superman asked Dick Grayson to check in on his son, to help him out, to mentor him. And so this is the first meeting of these, well, not first, but the first meeting since that. So Dick Grayson helps John Kent with something. And then we get an issue of Superman, son of Kal-El. I don't remember what the issue is now, but I'm waiting on that to arrive so I can finish reading this 2-part story. Okay, next up is Batman Catwoman, issues 7 through 10. So, fun story. There was a snafu because I get my comics from DCBS, and when DC changed distributors to, I think, Luna, which is DCBS in another name, if I remember correctly. It was either then or when they switched over to Tuesday delivery or Tuesday release. I don't know exactly, but there was a point when I noticed when I was making my orders, because with DCBS you can add, when you order these comics, you can select like a new series, like a number 1 issue. I can select that to be on my DCBS pull list. And I started noticing that I could not add some DC comics to my pull list, which sucks because I did not notice for some reason that I missed ordering Batman Catwoman issues 7, 8, and 9. And it was only last month when I did my order and I ordered issue 10. And then I was doing some other, I can't remember. No, I got issue 10 in my order delivery. And when I went to put that issue into my comics database, I realized that I didn't have 7, 8, and 9. I'm like, what happened here? And I'm thinking, oh, I just forgot to add them in because of course I got the issues and I read them. Only I come to find out, I go digging in my long boxes and, they're not there. I had totally spaced 7, 8, and 9. And have no idea how that happened. Anyway, long story short, I ordered them from a different company, so I had them and finally got them in. And so I was able to read 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right. It's interesting because 7, 8, and 9 are drawn by Liam Sharp. And I didn't know that. I think because I thought I had the series in my pull list. I swear to God, it was in my pull list before, and then, like I said, something changed, and then it wasn't in my pull list anymore because I got the first 6 issues. But I wasn't paying attention to who was on the team for each issue. I just assumed Clay Mann was doing the entire series with Tom King. Anyway, but that's not the case. Clay Mann returned with issue 10, and I hope he does the final 2 issues as well. But Liam Sharp did those 7, 8, 9 issues. And I have to say, I loved Liam Sharp's art on the Green Lantern that he did with Grant Morrison. It's beautiful and so expressive and imaginative. Here, it's, I don't know, I feel like Sharp works best when there's more color to contrast his tendency for large swatches of ink on the page, which you would think would work well for a Batman comic book. But I felt like it was just too much. I don't know. It was, I felt his art was understated, more understated than I've seen before. So I don't know. It just didn't work for me as well. And I don't really have anything else to say about the story itself. It's progressing along. I think this might have worked better as a 6-issue series, quite honestly. I mean, I haven't read the last 2 issues, but we shall see. The first 4 issues of the next series, Human Target. Oh my God. How beautiful this is. This was another series. So this is by Greg Smallwood and Tom King. I, again, like I mentioned with Supergirl, I was not getting Human Target for some reason. In single issues, I was waiting for the trade. And then I started seeing the response to the first couple issues. And I saw that beautiful issue 2 cover featuring Ice. And just the style of this, the art style, the idea. I mean, this is like a 60s PI-esque story. I would say it's a noir story, but it's so bright and colorful in this. It's like Mad Men meets, well, I guess the Silver Age DC Comics in a sense, but so much of post-crisis superhero-ness, because they're, some of the Bwahaha League members are part of this story besides Ice. So it's so bizarre. Well, not bizarre. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward story of Christopher Chance, the human target, accidentally, I guess, poisoned, and now he only has I think it's 8 days to live, and he's trying to find who murdered him. And so that is actually the plot of a couple movies, I think, the original and the remake. I saw the remake with Dennis Quaid many years later, or I'm sorry, many years ago. So, Tom King's just ripping off that movie, but, wrapped up with the whole DC Comics characters. Anyway, I like the story. It's just really, what I love about this is the art, the Greg Smallwood art. It's just, God, it's so beautiful. And the storytelling itself, it just makes you question everybody except for Christopher Chance. Their motives, are they part of this? What are they trying to get out of it? It's like Ice. It's like, is she the femme fatale, or is she just someone who is helping him along for the ride and helping him because she feels bad for the guy? I don't know. I can't wait to find out, though. Next up is the Batman special from 1984, and this is something that I became aware of many years ago, but based on the description, I didn't think it was all that, I guess, interesting enough to go get it. But then, and this is the wonderful thing about podcasts that I listen to and the people that I know in the comic book community, especially on Twitter and through podcasts and whatnot, Peter Rios and his CGS co-creator Brian, they talked about this Batman special on CGS episode 1842 recently, as at the time of this recording. And because of that, and because I was buying Batman Catwoman issues 7 through 9, and I wanted to have just a little bit more to justify purchasing, or justify the shipping costs I had to pay. I probably got this because it was just forefront of my mind because of the CGS episode. But anyway, it was because of their discussion of it that made me think, oh, I really should read this, because this is a story of Batman's opposite. And no, I'm not talking about Joker. It is the Wrath in here. And he, much like, so Bruce Wayne's parents were murdered in Crime Alley. And this guy's dad, I think, dad and mom were killed. They were criminals, or at least the dad was. And Jim Gordon, boy, I hope I'm getting this plot correct. Jim Gordon was the beat cop who shot and killed his dad. Anyway, so similar origins, but of course, the Wrath goes the other way and is taking out cops and other, quote unquote good guys. And so, that's what makes him his Batman's opposite. Now he's got this kooky cowl that makes him, it has, it's a W for Wrath. But it gives him pointed ears like Batman. So, props to Michael Golden, who did the art, for trying to come up with a concept that would mirror Batman, but not be Batman. Right. So, but it's still, it's kind of kooky. But there's some interesting things in here. Like, he has a girlfriend, and she's trying to convince him, stop, let's just go. Let's just stop your campaign, and let's just be together, type of thing. And there's a tragedy to that story. And also it's really nice to see the not a god Batman after all these years of reading the Bat God stories, because Batman messes up, and he's easily, maybe not easily, but he's the bad guy or bad guys get the better of him in some instances. That's how Batman used to be. He would get knocked unconscious quite a lot by not very powerful adversaries. So, but it was his, his wits and his abilities and his gadgets that would help him get out of those situations. anyway, I enjoyed this more than I thought it would, actually. So I think I would have enjoyed this more if it had been a 4-issue miniseries or something to, really kind of flesh out the Wrath character a little more and ratchet up the tension of the story, especially since Batman puts Gordon into protective custody. So yeah, it was interesting. You should check it out. Check it out if you are a Batman fan and haven't read about his opposite number. Okay, I talked previously about the third volume of the Hickman written X-Men, and I talked about the love story that goes on at the end of that, and then there's that reveal of Moira McTaggart, and I'm like, oh, I got to read the next thing. Well, there was no fourth volume of the Hickman written X-Men series. It was taken over by Gary Duggan. Anyway, so I discovered that the first 5 issues were on the Marvel Unlimited app. And so I'm like, oh, okay, I'll read this and see if the story continues in a way that I like. And while I did read basically all 5 issues in one sitting, and they were enjoyable, but they weren't what I was hoping for, what I was looking for, what I was wanting and expecting. Duggan and the artists involved continue some of these ideas that Hickman had been developing in the first 3 volumes, but they take the characters in a little different direction. They make it a more standard X-Men superhero comic book than what Hickman and the artists were doing. So I doubt I'll continue reading X-Men, that particular series after this. But if stuff has happened since issue 5 that you think I should that's related to the ideas and story lines that Hickman had conjured up, then let me know. Maybe I'll dip my toe back into the X-Men world. But I think, yeah. If not, then I think I'm done with the X-Men universe for a while. One universe that I continually come back to is Star Trek, and this is Star Trek New Visions. Like I said, issues 21 and 22, the final 2 issues of that series from a few years ago now. But I had gotten up through issue 20, and I decided I would stop and get the next set of issues in a trade collection, because I think they would do 3 issues and then issue a trade. And for some reason I wanted to get a trade instead of getting the issues. I'm not sure why now, but that's how it was. And anyway, then I discovered that issue 22 was the last issue. I'm like, oh, I don't get that. It's not continuing. I don't get that trade. I mean, I obviously I could have got the trade. But then I would also get issue 20 in that. And anyway, long story short, I finally just went and bought issues 21 and 22. So then I have a full, a complete set instead of 20 issues and then a trade. Anyway, I got them and I read them. I've enjoyed these, quote unquote, they call it, on the cover, they call it a photo play. I always thought of these as like the successor to the photo novels that I read as a young man. And these are by John Byrne, right? So he takes these images from the Star Trek series, images of the characters and the backgrounds and the ships and all that stuff, but then puts them together, sort of like cutting out images from a magazine and then putting them together to form a new story. But he also adds, digital backgrounds, digital characters. Sometimes he'll take photos of actual people in his life to be these other characters. And so issue 21 features Kirk and Commander Kor, the Klingon Commander Kor, escaping this alien race. But they have to work together to do so. These 2 mortal enemies working together. And then issue 22, the final issue, is my favorite of the 2. But this is Kirk and company returning to the Guardian of Forever because of some, space time shenanigans. And Kirk's not liking it, of course. The last time he visited the Guardian of Forever, tragedy struck in his life. But when he goes back in time, he ends up interacting with an earlier version of Gary 7. So Gary 7 hadn't met them yet in the timeline when we saw him in the series episode. So, it was kind of a fun, timey-wimey romp featuring those characters. So yeah, it was okay. I have to say though, there in both issues 21 and 22, Byrne digitally creates these aliens, and they just look hokey as hell. I have to say, maybe that's what he was going for. It just occurred to me, maybe that is what he was trying for, because Star Trek is known by those who don't love it as much as I do, as being hokey, with paper mache rocks and stuff like that, the bad special effects, which honestly, they're really not that bad. But maybe that's what he was going for. Maybe it was like he was creating these characters digitally to look like they would have been created had they been able to create things like that back in the 60s. Does that make sense? Anyway, that was my only complaint. But now that I've rethought it, it's like, well, that works. All right, finally, I have the Outsider special and the Infinity Inc. special that I ordered not too long ago, and I discovered these. So these came out in 1985 or 87. I've got two different dates here printed on the label. I don't know. Anyway, I discovered this because I did a search because I wanted to. I like the character of Halo from The Outsiders, and I wanted to see in which issues she appeared because I was thinking about buying a bunch of those issues. And I discovered, there's this Outsiders Infinity Inc. crossover specials. Well, I have to get those because I like both of those teams, and I wanted to see how how they team up, what happens when they team up. It was just merely a curiosity thing. And then I read it. I read the issues, and oh boy, what a disappointment! so much contrivance in the story and the plot just to keep the plot afloat for those two issues, and also many of our heroes just to keep them alive because they're in these situations where they could easily have been killed, but then they're not. I don't know. And then add insult to injury to insult, whatever that phrase is. Halo had a very minor role in this story, so didn't quite. The mission wasn't quite accomplished for me in this story. So, and also they're in the Infinity Inc. the part 2 of the story. There was this editorial note to explain something that should have been evident in the art but wasn't. And it was something that happened in the previous issue. So I think they were just trying to help you along just in case. But it was just like, just show it. Don't tell us. Just show. It's just, I don't know. It was just the quality of the work in this is, no offense to Barr, Patton, Smith, Thomas, Argandesi, and Dezaniga, but this story was not there. It's kind of like Jerry Conway called the first issue specials half-baked. And there you go. That is what I got for this pull list review for March 2022 comic books. If you have any opinions about these, please let me know. You can email me at longboxreview@gmail.com, or you can leave comments at the website as well. Chat with me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at longboxreview. If you don't mind, leave a 5-star review at Apple Podcasts or iTunes or whatever you want to call it. And spread the word if you don't mind. Let people know that the podcast is out there and how much you like it. Anyway, thank you for listening, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.